Okay, we get asked several times about the performance of the aircraft, how far can it go, what can it carry, how fast it go, that sort of thing. So we put together this little video just to give you a few facts and figures. So the FlightPub aircraft is a Robin DR400 manufactured by Robin Avions in Dijon in France. Because it's French, it's got a few quirks. So for example, all the controls are labelled in French, which is interesting. So you have to either know your French or remember where things are. It was previously a trainer in a flight school before we bought it, and it was originally manufactured in 1979. So it's 47 years old. Now that might sound odd to some people, but most general aviation light aircraft are of that sort of vintage, 70s and 80s. When we bought her 3 years ago, the cost was around about £35,000. So less than a mid-range family car. Again, a bit of a surprise to some people when you talk about it in those terms. But the real hidden cost of general aviation, as you would expect, is in the maintenance. So it has to have an annual service. It has to have a service every 100 hours and every 50 hours. An annual service is around about £5,000. An 100-hour service has been £2,500 and £3,000, and a 50-hour service between £800 and £1,000. And that's before any parts, anything that needs replacing, and any fluids, etc. So as you can see, the costs rack up. So what can she carry and how far can she go? So maximum takeoff weight is around 880 kilograms. Empty, she's 565. With a full load of fuel, that's another 80 on top. That comes to 645 kilograms. So if you do the maths, that gives us around about 230, 235 kilos to play with. So myself, Peter, baggage, depending on how many pies we've got on board as well, is around about 200 kilos. So if you do the maths, you'll see that only gives us around about 60 kilos spare. Now, it's a 4-seat aircraft. In reality, you can probably get 3 people in, and we have had 3 people in, but that third person either needs to be a child, anorexic, or just plain small. Now, you can change that by reducing the fuel load. If we halve the fuel load, for example, we'll get another 40 kilos. That's 100 kilos. That's average then for a fully grown male. So you can get 3 people in there, but the range is then obviously correspondingly reduced. So when we talk about range, how far can she go? So the aircraft burns around about 25 litres per hour. Fully fueled, that gives her endurance of around about 3.5 hours. Legally, we've got to have a reserve of 30 minutes, but this equates to around about a 400 nautical mile range. So if you have a look on the diagram, you can see that without landing, we can actually get to most parts of England, we can get over to Ireland, and we can get to the northern coast of France. However, that's not really the true story. The limiting factor becomes things like headwind or tailwind. The headwind's obviously going to slow us down. And in reality, how often do we need to stop for a pee? Bladder is a limiting factor. Performance, right. So the aircraft, in the pilot's operating handbook, the POH, when she was new, it actually said she'll do 140 knots, not miles an hour, knots, when she was brand new. However, she's 47 years old. So a few of those horses that were under the hood have escaped since then. And she'll only hit 140 if you point the nose straight down and you dive at the ground. So in reality, she'll cruise at around about 110, 150 knots. And if you redline it, you'll probably see about 125, maybe 130 if you're lucky. Flying over water comes with different challenges. Obviously, if the engine fails over water, our only option is to ditch. And assuming we survive the ditching and get out of the aircraft, then your challenge becomes to stay afloat and avoid hypothermia. So we've got to take other safety precautions when flying over water. So obviously life jackets, flares and various other safety equipment, and spare handheld radios and so on. It's also advisable to wear immersion suits. However, they are very cumbersome and also, as you'll see in the photo, make you look absolutely bloody ridiculous. So they tend to be only used for much longer flights over water. The engine. So the Lycoming 0235, I won't get too boring about the text, but it's the most popular, or the Lycoming brand rather, is the most popular light aircraft engine in the world, powering over half the world's general aviation fleet. So it's tried and tested. It's been around since the 50s and the 60s. Very robust and very well proven. It has a time before overhaul limit of 2,400 hours, which basically means when you get to it's flown for 2,400 hours, it's got to be completely dismantled, completely overhauled. Ours is currently at about 2,000 hours. So we've got that pleasure coming up in 400 hours, which is actually further away than it sounds. It's several years of flying in front of us. However, when we do get to that point, the overhaul cost is going to be in the region of £25,000 to £30,000. And if we, God forbid, were to replace the engine, a new engine is going to cost around about £50,000. So if you remember what I said earlier on, the aircraft itself only cost £35,000, you can see the maths get rather painful at that point. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this has cleared up a few of your technical questions, and don't forget to like, subscribe and join us for any future FlightPub adventures.